You know, it's not every day that a 13-year-old decides to take on a former president and ends up going viral for it. But that's exactly what we're breaking down today. We're going to dive into a video from the YouTube channel Really American that's all about a young political commentator who's making some serious waves. Let's get right into it.
So, this is the big question at the heart of it all, right? The story of Tristan Ryan Perkins, at least as it's presented in the source video, really puts this question front and center. He's not just some kid with an opinion, he's framed as this new, surprisingly powerful voice in a very, very loud political world.
All right, so who is this new voice? This is Tristan Ryan Perkins. The video introduces him as a future presidential hopeful and a woke political activist. I mean, talk about setting your sights high. The narrator even argues that Tristan is more clued in than a lot of adults, which kind of flips that whole stereotype about young people being disengaged on its head.
Okay, so to really get a handle on the impact he's having, here's how we're going to break it down. We'll look at how he went viral in the first place, then get into his views on foreign policy. We'll talk about this really clever leaky roof analogy he uses, and then tackle how he confronts some very serious accusations. After that, it's his warning about Project 2025, and finally, we'll see how the internet reacted to all this.
So the video really kicks off by pushing back against that old idea that young people just don't care about politics. It basically holds up Tristan as Exhibit A of a new, super engaged generation that isn't just listening, but is ready to grab the microphone themselves.
And Tristan, well, he doesn't waste any time wading into the deep end. The first big point the video highlights is a pretty sharp critique of U.S. foreign policy, and he zeroes in specifically on the relationship with Mexico.
This quote from the video really says it all about his style. He's super direct, he doesn't pull any punches, arguing that the U.S. has a long history of, in his words, screwing Mexico over. And he even challenges the history books, saying the land wasn't conquered, it was stolen.
And to back this up, the source video points to a whole list of things Tristan brings up. As you can see here, he's talking about things from the Trump administration, the wall, the tariffs, but he also goes way back to historical land theft. And then, the video shows him contrasting all of that with times when Mexico sent aid to the U.S. during disasters.
Okay, next up is this really clever analogy he uses. It's his answer to that classic line people throw around, if you don't like it here, then just leave.
He breaks it down like this. If you find a leak in your roof, you don't just abandon the whole house. That'd be crazy, right? No, you stay, you put in the hard work, and you fix the leak. So in his analogy, the country is the house, the leak is Donald Trump, and the solution isn't to leave, but to stay and fix the problem.
All right, now we get to what the source video's narrator calls the most impactful part of what Tristan has to say. This is where he tackles some incredibly serious and very sensitive accusations head-on.
But before we get into the specifics, the video points out something really interesting about how he does it. He apparently uses code words for certain topics because he knows the social media algorithms might suppress his content otherwise. According to the source, it just shows how well he understands the digital world he's playing.
Okay, so the core of his argument boils down to this comparison you see here. The video highlights his claim that there are more women who have accused Donald Trump of sexual assault than there are transgender athletes competing in all of college sports.
And he uses that comparison to ask this incredibly provocative question. He's basically challenging the political priorities he sees, wondering why one issue seems to get so much airtime while the other, in his view, doesn't get nearly enough.
And to really hammer this point home, the video actually shows him reading a list of the accusers by name. He just goes down the list, name after name, to show the scale of what he's talking about. This slide just shows a few of them, but in the video, he lists a total of 17 women. From there, the video shifts gears and shows Tristan zooming out to talk about what he believes is a much bigger political strategy going on behind the scenes, and it's all tied to something called Project 2025. So, the source video details this multi-step theory he lays out. Step 1, get Trump elected to sow division. Step 2, install J.D. Vance, who Tristan claims is the author of 90% of Project 2025. Step 3, get rid of Trump by claiming he's unfit for office. And the final step, 4, Vance takes over and puts the whole Project 2025 plan into motion. He wraps up this whole warning with this really memorable line. He's telling his audience that, in his view, Trump isn't the endgame. He's just a tool, a fiddle, being used for a much bigger political project. So, as you can probably guess, a 13-year-old making these kinds of huge claims online, it got a massive, and I mean massive, and very polarized reaction. The source video makes sure to cover both the intense backlash and the huge wave of support he got.
And this slide really captures that divide perfectly. On one hand, the video shows these really hostile comments, people accusing his parents of indoctrination and abuse. But on the other hand, you have the video's narrator and his audience starting a full-on campaign to boost Tristan's profile.
And according to the source video, that support was definitely making a difference. When they made the video, Tristan had already shot past 96,000 followers on Instagram, which is just a huge sign of his growing reach online.
The narrator of the source video kind of wraps everything up by saying that Tristan is basically the face of a whole new generation of suitor progressives. It's this hopeful message, you know? But it's also got this little note of caution, a worry that the very democracy this generation is supposed to inherit might be in trouble.
And all of this really leaves us with one final massive question. Tristan is part of the first generation of true digital natives, growing up in this hyper-polarized world. His story isn't just about one kid. It could be a preview of what's coming. So it really makes you think, what is our political discourse going to look like when it's led by a generation that speaks the language of these new platforms better than anyone else?